Amid the heartbreak and devastation of war in the Middle East, there is some good news today. Hamas has released 2 more elderly Israeli hostages from Gaza. They've been identified as 79-year-old Nurit Cooper and 85-year-old Yocheved Lifshitz, who reportedly suffers from Parkinson's disease. The Palestinian terror group claims the pair were released for humanitarian reasons, but their husbands, who were also kidnapped on October 7, remain in captivity. Now, the IDF has been quick to point out the terror group continues to hold more than 200 people, including babies, children, women and the elderly captive. The release of 2 Israelis today comes after American hostages Judith Ran and her teenage daughter Natalie were released on Friday. A former Israeli intelligence officer has warned the slow release of hostages is a key tactic being used by Hamas.
What we see is part of a Hamas tactic. We have to understand Hamas is now holding some 220 hostages. Most of them, of course, are civilians, babies, kids, women, old people. And Hamas is trying as much as possible to exhaust that card as a bargaining chip. He hopes to manipulate the whole story of the hostages, hoping that by doing that he could be able to more and more delay and postpone and actually diffuse in a way the possibility of a massive Israeli ground operation that is aimed to end his rule over Gaza Strip. So what we see is what I call the salami system. Last week Hamas released 2 hostages. Today he is releasing another 2 hostages. In between there are talks about potentially some deal brokered by Qatar for the release of another 50 hostages. But I think it's quite clear that in the end of the day, particularly when the international community sends a very clear message to Hamas that he has to immediately release all the hostages, that this is not acceptable.
Despite the release of 2 Israelis, Israel has confirmed the number of hostages being held by Hamas has risen to 222. Hamas claims 22 hostages have died in Israeli airstrikes. The United States is pushing Israel to delay a potential ground invasion into Gaza in order to buy more time for hostage negotiations.
We've been very clear and consistent about our support for Israel and their ability to defend themselves. Jackie, we've been very clear and consistent about the fact that we're going to keep providing security assistance so that they can do that. We've been clear and consistent about the need for humanitarian assistance to flow, and clear and consistent about our desire to get people out of Gaza as well as to get our hostages home.
A senior Hamas leader has claimed the militant group is committed to returning people to Israel. He says it depends on whether Israel stops its airstrikes on Gaza.
Will you release all the civilian hostages? Will you let them go from Gaza? Unconditionally, will you let them out now?
They are not hostages, first. Secondly, I told you...
Whatever you call them, captives, guests, whatever. Will you let them go? What have they done?
I said we will release them, and Al-Qassam brigades announced that. But now they are distributed in different locations. Israel has killed more than 22 of them because of the destruction it has caused. So therefore, if Netanyahu was keen on their safety, if the Europeans and the Americans are keen on their safety, let them force Israel to stop its aggression, to stop this genocide, this brutal war crimes which are committed every day. Yesterday, only 400 victims in one night, Dominic. Let them stop this aggression, and you will find the mediators like Qatar and some Arab countries like Egypt and others, they will find a way to have them released, and we'll send them to their homes.
Palestinian journalists have filmed Hamas fighters going to civilian places, attacking civilians. I'm asking you, please answer. Was that intended? Was it calculated? Or was it a mistake? Did your men go too far that day?
I'm telling you very specifically, the elite forces of Al-Qassam did not kill civilians, with the admission of Israeli women in the Israeli media as a result of the fire exchange and by the bullets of the Israelis.
Hamas bandanas, they're in kibbutzes, civilian places, looking for civilians.
Let me finish my sentence, please. If there was any killing, this definitely was not intended, definitely.
The Israel Defence Force has confirmed 320 targets were hit in the Gaza Strip on Monday and Sunday, including tunnels, operational headquarters and military compounds used by Hamas.